Hello everyone, welcome to a new podcast episode. I'm your host Surya S, and in today's episode, Amogha shares his exciting engineering journey, some of the strategies which helped him to crack a monstrous package with Amazon, and provide valuable insights into how you can use platforms like LinkedIn to find opportunities as high as this, so that you can have the flexibility of considering off-campus opportunities as well. So let's get started. So, welcome Amogha. Thank you for joining in.
Hi Surya, thank you so much. I always wanted to talk to all of my juniors sometime, but I haven't been able to do it lately. Thank you for inviting me on this.
My pleasure. So, let's speak about your childhood. I recently came across a research which said 50% of our
Mhm.
overall development happens in the first 6 years of our lives, where our brains are extremely susceptible to learn things at a faster pace based on our environment and surroundings. So, on a similar note, I'd love to know what was
Mhm.
your relationship with technology while you were growing up, and to what extent do you feel that it had a role to play in whatever you could achieve right now?
That is actually true. I would second that. So I also, although like initially when you say childhood, it goes back in memory to maybe school, high school, and all of it. Back
Mm,
then, I don't know. I was not really sure if I wanted to pursue tech, but it was mostly cricket and all of that. But at
mm,
some point, when I started using computers and like try to understand how things work, that is when I felt okay, this is interesting. It's not so straightforward. So I think first project of mine or like first tech exposure is I built a website when I was in class 10. So
oh,
that's when I started feeling, okay, this is interesting. I should learn tech. And fortunately, I had access to a lot of software engineers who stayed close by to my home. So I was talking
mm,
to them, and I used to understand how things work. So I always used to play. I think everyone or every one of us like played a lot of computer games, and whenever I used to play, I used to like try to understand how these things used to work. But when I got to know it's not as straightforward as it looks, that made it more interesting, and maybe that is where it started that I should pursue tech.
yeah, that was surprising to hear, like building a website in class 10. In fact, surrounded by the environment where most of us just focus, makes us to focus a lot on scoring good grades and marks, giving less priority to gaining knowledge, to be more precise. So that's quite
That's right.
surprising and commendable, actually. And
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, when I say website, it is not as fully loaded like how we build it now. It
yeah,
is a very
just
simple.
basic front end one is also quite commendable, I feel. Hmm. Yeah, and moving to your engineering journey, so can you walk us through your engineering journey and some of the key moments which you felt were defining and crucial, which should have happened so that you could have reached where you are today? Yes, in terms of maybe getting clarity of what you want to do, or maybe winning
Mhm.
some competitions, or anything for that matter.
Oh yeah, that's true. I am actually glad I chose SJCE. I'll probably start with that. So
Mm,
when I started, I wanted to pursue like every aspirant. I wanted to maybe get into one of the IITs or NITs,
mm,
but then uh, luck didn't go my way, and I ended up like joining JC. But I don't regret that decision. Maybe it's because wherever you go, it depends on like what you do. It doesn't depend on what your teachers teach or like what your environment is. At some point, maybe like all of us realize that you will start learning that everything you learn will be on yourself. But that being said, I got like definitely good support from my lecturers and all of my friends. I definitely had a lot of good company in terms of friends, and also got very good guidance from my lecturers throughout. So since you asked me journey of my college, first year, I think every one of us know it's most of like
mm,
getting into engineering and not much of computer science related stuff. But later on, when I did my branch entry to computer science, I had a very good set of lecturers. Fortunately, again, I think
mm,
I've always like almost all of my lecturers in college. They used to be really nice, or maybe they used to like very softly explain to us. I never felt that like whenever we had questions, they denied us. So that was nice. But yeah, in general, uh, coming back to what changed, right? So I participated in few competitions. One of them was in like fourth semester. That was a hackathon conducted by Philips. I think about
mm,
200 teams participated, and like me and my friends won that competition. That boosted my morale. And uh, people tell grades don't matter, but kind of matters is what I believe.
mm,
It directly or indirectly matters. So at the end, when you study and you get a good grade, you would have probably also alongside learned that subject, right? You
mm,
kind of like reduce the burden of learning outside of it. So maybe because I got decent grades, I always like had that freedom with lecturers to like talk, and they also like there's always that mutual respect when you get good grades, is what I feel. So that is something which I got, and I openly used to discuss many project ideas, and I got good guidance in that as well. So I, in terms of competition, I think Phillips hackathon was one of them, which like changed how I used to think and boosted my morale a lot, gave me a lot of confidence. That was in second year. And in third year, I think I participated in a Deloitte hackathon. That again, I was part of the finalists. Like me and my friends, our team was part of the finalists. We didn't win it, but again, that also gave me a lot of confidence. So if you like see these two competitions, and there was a company called Schneider Electric. I was a campus ambassador for Schneider Electric when I was in college. So this is like the third exposure to corporate. And there's another company called as Analytics Vidya, I think, which is still there. Again, campus ambassador for that when I was in college. So what does this help, right? Like all of these four things. When I look back into and see what helped is like getting that exposure, trying to understand how corporate world works, and talking to people, developing communication skills. After you graduate, you'll automatically do. But what will help when you do it then is you will get more confidence in general to talk in your placements, or in general, like at least I had a lot of stage fear before, so maybe somehow without knowing this helped. And yeah, coming to fourth year, I was participating actively in Linux campus club activities, and I was a chief coordinator back then in like my final year. So that again helped directly and indirectly. That again helped. Like I used to go and talk to students and organize events, and that automatically gives you again more confidence. So all of this, whatever you do along with your grades, you need to have this second track going where you get more confidence. Because once you are like done with your college, that spoon feeding stage will end, like where you will when I say spoon feeding, at least in college you have a set syllabus. You know you need to study 5 units. You will be asked only from that 5 units like topics. But once you come out, it will be all like new. You'll just know subject, and you randomly need to like ramp up, talk to people, understand. And so that is something which will always help people, is what I felt. So along with all of this, yeah, I think I liked how my college journey went. So
Yeah.
it was very fruitful. And in terms of since you brought this up, back then I always wanted to pursue machine learning, data science. Even now I have a sweet spot in my mind for that, but yeah, I haven't gotten to pursue a lot. So what is that? How is that like playing a role? Is I did this internship in Philips Healthcare based on machine learning. It was in a data science domain. That was about for 2 months, and I also worked with my professor, Dr. Anil Kumar sir, on uh, one of the research paper and also one of the project. So what is this going to help me in, right? Like I didn't pursue a path of taking up masters in data science or anything, but which if I had chosen to do that, that would definitely count in. So I would definitely like suggest people who are interested in pursuing masters, like to think about all of this, how it would play a big role. So engineering is definitely not just about like finishing your internals, finishing your projects, finishing your sem and exams. Along with it, all of this plays a role. If you want to do masters, you should definitely do some projects in that domain, publish your research papers. It's not something which will start in the end of your engineering and then think of how to do it. It's a process, right? You have your
Yeah.
4 years, you should pace yourself accordingly. So that's what I feel. And yeah, I had that ready, but I ended up like not doing master. And since I started into as a software developer at Amazon, I kind of been liking this. So this has been my college journey. Yeah.
That's an exciting journey. And one important point you mentioned that grades do matter indirectly. Yes, that is something which I could relate to as well, because you will have you will be required to go through a set structure of syllabus, which is something
Yes.
which is not available outside. So learning just for grades might not help, but grades can be a byproduct of your
That's true.
curiosity, is what I feel. And
That's true.
yeah, and moving on to your coding journey. So, what were some of your coding resolutions? Like, how did you practice coding, and especially competitive programming and all? So, how can you share us some insights into how you tackle those?
Sure, definitely. Like I was earlier referring, I was fortunate that I had good lecturers. So I had definitely good base setup. When you talk about competitive coding, understanding concepts is very important, right? You can't just go and like code. Although you can code, but it's important to understand what is the right data structure to use, what is the right algorithm to use. How is it you will probably calculate time complexity, space complexity. Like those are the basics. Without knowing that, you can't just go and do competitive coding. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is something where it started. Like that is I think it started from like probably Sem 3 or Sem 4, where I learned data structures, algorithms, and all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly until my second end of third year, I probably used to like just whenever I used to participate in any of the competitions or maybe in any of this hackathons.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't do a lot of coding hackathon, but yeah, there used to be a lot of coding hackathons also going on in HackerRank, and so I did try
Mm-hmm.
to participate in that. So second year and third year was mostly about like understanding the basics, learning the concepts. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like after third year, you'd probably go to placements. That is when you probably seriously start coding. But yeah, I would advise everyone who is starting now, maybe that's not the time. You should start like at least end of second year. Make sure you know all of the basics by second year, and like start in the beginning of your third year, because there are a lot of internship opportunities which come up in third year, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when you will need to know coding before. Like you can't just postpone it,
Yeah.
right? So I did that. So yeah, in third year I was mostly practicing. Back then hacker rank was famous,
Yeah.
so I used to practice mostly on hacker rank and try to go with easy mediums. And like at some point I was doing mostly mediums,
Mm-hmm.
because easy will help you ramp up, but easy will not help you in terms of like cracking the interview. So at some point you need to like improve your pace and go to mediums. So I was doing mostly mediums in hacker rank based on subjects, like whatever all of this important concepts in data structures and algorithms. So that was my journey. But if you ask me, how should someone like
Mm-hmm.
look at this, right? I would definitely again go back and say learn the basics. That is data structures, algorithms, and all of it. Like understand the concepts. Uh, there are like people who say trees and graphs are not taught properly, and it's probably because it's not that much like there in the syllabus, but it's pretty important to understand all of these basic concepts. And only if you understand that, you can probably implement solutions. Like you can't code without understanding that. So there's definitely tons of resources available on YouTube these days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't have to limit yourself to what college teaches you or like what your syllabus offers. So learn them. Maybe then now I've been in terms of competitive coding, I'll probably say lead code has taken over HackerRank, or at least I didn't know much of lead code before. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say practice on lead code. Mediums are good. And yeah, once you are close to taking placements, I would say take premium subscription of lead code. That has helped me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing it might help you too. So that way you can get this company tagged question. So although people say competitive coding might not be like very much required in day-to-day work, but that is a gateway for your job offer,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can't neglect it.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking about resources which you just mentioned for coding, so would you
Mhm.
suggest any other resources for any other technologies as well? So I guess whatever taught is college is pretty much sufficient for getting good grades, but for having a good grasp of understanding about the syllabus or the subject itself. So were there any other resources which you mentioned for other subjects as well?
Sure. So a couple of other important ones for data structures and algorithms is a book by Narasimha Karumanchi.
Mm-hmm.
So that that is one, and the other one is Cracking the Coding Interview is
Yeah.
another one.
Mm-hmm.
Geeks for Geeks for definitely, like you just pick a random subtopic and there'll be so many articles on Geeks for Geeks, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's not about just following one book or following two books. Go topic by topic. Maybe just like, pick a simple one, arrays, right? If you're just
Mm-hmm.
picking arrays, you just make sure you know everything in that. Like I'm just picking that random one, but yeah, for that you just like refer all of the available material. Like make sure you know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not like you just finish it off. It's a journey, right? Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
have to make sure you make points like notes and all of it, like because it's a journey, it'll take a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's common like for everyone to forget once you prepare, so you need to like keep brushing up every now and then. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a journey. Yeah.
Yeah, as you just mentioned, we need to make notes so that we can retain whatever we learn in a longer run. So that is one thing which helped me as well. So, and hackathons is something if we can realize whatever we learn practically, that would help as well. So, were there any other methods you used to retain whatever you learn in a longer run?
Right. So notes, since you just told me, it's funny that I used to make notes of everything I used to study, and
Okay.
people used to, my friends used to like always make fun of that. But yeah, it was fun. So I kind of like that part because for me, whatever I study, it's very human nature to forget it, right? Like if you study
Mm-hmm.
today, it's possible
Exactly.
that you remember everything after like 4 months or 6 months, and you're
Mm-hmm.
at some exam. So whenever I used to prepare for internals, I used to have my own notes, which is to refer for some exam. That's an example which I'm giving. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
similarly, when preparing, it may not have to be like you like make detailed notes, but something which will refresh your memory instantly. So when you're going to an interview, you will be nervous, right?
Mm,
Along with it, you can't just like look into all resources what you studied. You need to have something. May it be your notes or some other material, but make sure you have something like handy so you can just brush up when you need it.
yeah, that was pretty much insightful. And Jigs for Jigs, as you mentioned, is a boon, I can say, for EC students at least, as we would have not required to make notes as CS people would have done in their syllabus. So Jigs for Jigs
Right.
is definitely a recommendation. So, and can you walk us through your interview process? So, what was it like, and how many rounds did you have?
Sure, I can. I think I just missed one part in the placement prep. That is
Mm,
RS Agarwal. Some of these
okay.
companies still ask aptitude, so RS
Mm,
Agarwal is something which is to refer. And I did prepare for aptitude as well because that is again gateway, right? You can't just say I
mm,
know aptitude, I'll just go and crack it. You
mm,
will still need to prepare for it. So don't shy away from preparation. Always spend time. Like just spend like 1 week or 2 weeks. That's okay, but
mm,
make sure you know because whatever you know, if you just solve these questions from RS Agarwal and all of it, it'll make it easy. So be
mm,
prepared. Maybe that is something which I missed out. Yeah, that's something which everyone should keep in their mind, like making sure they are good with aptitude as well. Because not at least today, I think some Amazon doesn't ask, but there's definitely different companies which interview. Like they have a part of their and I think of a campus hiring, there's this first round where I have this aptitude part. So it's good
yeah,
to be. Yeah. So yeah, coming back to my interview journey,
yeah.
I think I got placed in third company which I interviewed, I believe, in college.
Mm,
Um, that was first company was a company called as Avi Networks, and second one was Western Digital. In first and second, I went through. I cracked the first round, and I think I gave like one or two rounds of interview, but I didn't make it. Yeah, it's kind of back then. It's definitely difficult to digest when you probably go through that because in the campus environment you will probably feel okay something's not going right, but it's okay because it's not just like one or two companies, right? There'll be hundreds of companies which visit our college. So yeah, it'll feel a bit probably difficult, but yeah, you need to make sure it's okay. It's just a process because some of my friends who didn't get through in first few companies are definitely doing well than a lot of other friends who got in first few companies. So getting a first company or second company doesn't matter. It's what matters is getting into the right company and getting into the right role based on your interests. So I was particular, although that was my third company which I gave interview. I think that was 10th or 12th company which was visiting the campus. I was a bit particular about which role I want to get into. It was mostly software engineering for me or data science. But since back then our college was not getting companies which used to offer data science, things might have changed. But yeah, back then I was kind of like restricted on interviewing only for the software engineering roles. But yeah, that was my choice. It need not have to be same for everyone. Yeah, they can plan accordingly what roles they like, and they can explore more about the roles before the interview, right? So there are like many companies which come in, but roles might not be software engineering, might not be related to software. There'll be consultant roles and all of that. So those are also nice, but it depends on personal interests on what they want to do. Coming back to my journey in terms of my interview experience, I didn't go through in the first two companies, and the third one was Logmain. I got placed in Logmain, and I got an internship as well as full-time offer. So that is, I think I got a 6 month internship and a full time offer. And if I remember right, I got this offer on 8th of August around that time,
Oh,
around first
okay.
week of August. Yeah. So yeah. Again, after that, in that interview experience, I actually had like one round of first round was again coding, and then there was like 4 rounds of interview. Yeah, 4 rounds of interview, three technical and one HR. In all of the three technical rounds, I was asked to write a solution for the question. I think it was mostly a coding question and a bit about my resume and all of it. Yeah, since the resume came up, make sure you have a crisp resume. And when you have a resume, like whatever you put in your resume, you make sure you know that. Like you just need to kind of you sell yourself. Like your
Yeah.
resume is your what do you say is like a market value, right? So you make sure you have everything which is like right. Yeah, coming back. So it was more of interview questions, and resume based questions in first three rounds, and in the last round was HR round. Again, it does matter for campus hiring. So
Mm,
not all of the companies have HR round, but yeah, when you have HR round, you should probably think through what is the right answers to give. There's again definitely a lot of resources on the internet saying what are the right answers
mm,
to give for the HR round. So yeah, you probably need to go through that and make sure you don't what actually happens in HR is they make sure you are the better right fit for the company, and they just verify that. So you need to make sure the answers which you give will make you a better fit for the company. So in terms of coding questions, I was asked to write it on pen and paper. They asked me a coding question. I don't recollect the question now, but it was pen
mm,
and paper. And after I wrote the code, they asked me to simulate it using some test cases, and they asked me to give the time and space complexity. This is
mm,
a general pattern for any coding interview. You will either be asked to write it on pen and paper or on a code pad on internet, like on the uh, for remote interviews you'll probably asked on some code pad or some
mm.
internal docs or something where you could probably write code. Yeah.
So back then was everything on off online or offline?
Yes, it
Okay.
was offline. So that was in 2019. Things were offline.
Yeah.
Um, Everything used to happen in our placement cell, and our
Mm,
placement executives used to take care of all of the placement coordinators used to take care of all of this, and
mm.
it was yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
since you mentioned resume is quite important to depict your persona to the interviewer, so are there
Mhm.
any some key points which you would like to tell which should be there on your resume? And some of the things which should be avoided as well.
Definitely, I can share some insights. I think there are good examples on the internet as well on how to prepare one page resume or two-page resume,
Mm.
like nice one.
And which do you
So
advise? One page or two page?
I would probably vote for one page unless you have so much that you have to tell, right?
Mm.
Like
Okay.
you could definitely write so much make it two pages, but make
Mm.
sure you have that much content. Unless you have
Mm.
that much content, one page is probably nice. I think I had one page resume for a long time, but yeah, recently I believe when I updated, maybe it went to two pages, or I kind of again brought it back to one page. The
Mm.
reason why I'm saying one page, two pages in campus hiring, it might not matter. Like you would probably it's okay because
Mm.
you're everyone's eligible, right? But when
Mm.
it comes to off campus, and when you apply to a company and recruiter is scanning, they would probably want to make sure whatever job profile you apply to has that information on the resume. And for
Mm.
that, if you just have like pages of resume, it's difficult for them also to like see what is it's important,
Mm.
right? So what you could probably have is like some of the basic ones are which is very important is like some languages which you know, some IDs you've used, and some
Mm.
projects you've worked on, right? Like so that they could relate to some technology what you have used, right? Let's say you have Python, Flask, or like some Java, Spring Boot based application. You could use all of those keywords on your. You could probably mention your project and what technology you used along with the
Mm.
project. So that is something which I've liked. And yeah, and what is it something you need to avoid is probably you would need to maybe avoid having your I say personal information like where you were born,
Okay.
what is your languages, dialects you would probably like know to talk,
Mm.
and maybe father name, mother name, and all of this are like something which is good, but yeah, maybe not relevant for your software engineering job interview. So
Mm.
make sure what is relevant. So I know you would probably have a lot of hobbies in terms of maybe you'll have some extracurricular or like co-curricular
Mm.
have hobbies. You can just mention a hobby, but mentioning those achievements and filling up your resume might not be required because you can
Mm.
talk about it when they ask about it, but that is not something which is relevant, right? So
Mm.
you probably need to keep your resume to what is relevant. And it's also advisable, what I've gotten feedback before is ordering the projects. So let's say
Mm.
I've made some project on networking and Cisco is coming to interview. I
Mm.
would probably have the networking project on top rather than others. So it's not that you prepare your resume and you'll like not change. You can always you would probably always try to prepare and like plan it accordingly in such a way that based on the company you're interviewing for, you can like prioritize your projects.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
and always, yeah, if you're asking for a generic one, again, it's advisable to have your like best project or like a project which you know a lot on
Mm.
top. And one more thing, what I personally feel is like we end up putting projects which we have worked as a team, right?
Mm.
So all of the interviewers will be very much interested in understanding what is your contribution in your project. So make sure you have your story right. And
mm,
they're interviewers, right? They would probably would have seen a lot of candidates. It might be kind of easy for them also, like, to know if you are like kind of, probably we end up kind of sometimes lying, so it's good not to lie. So
mm,
yeah. And when they ask you, they'll probably drill down a lot to the basics. So
mm,
in one of my interviews for Amazon, I was interviewing for Amazon, I think in May 2019. Yeah.
mm,
So and when I was interviewing, I was actually in one of the rounds asked, that was a virtual round. So I spoke my project. I had a data science based project on top. That was my
mm,
first project, and I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but the person who was interviewing, his team used to work on that domain. So you know how much expertise he has.
yeah.
Obviously, he'll know stuff, right? So
Mm,
that is when I felt I knew stuff, but I was not so prepared. But I did okay. So,
mm,
for instance, one question which he asked me is, he asked me to share the link of the Kaggle dataset right away,
mm,
right? So you need to make sure you know stuff. You can't just say, I'll send it to you later. You can't do that. You should have them handy. Like, since it was virtual and it was my personal laptop, he gave me 2 minutes and he asked me to share that right away on the call.
mm,
So there are instances where they'll ask you for like a lot of details, and if some domain, what you are interviewing is their domain of expertise, so be prepared to like take that grilling. When I say grilling, it's not bad. It's just that they want to understand whatever you're telling is like correct. So if you pass that, that will earn trust for them. Like, that will make them feel, okay, you're the right candidate. So whatever you
mm.
put on your resume, make sure you know everything properly.
Yeah, that was pretty much insightful. And do you advise adding social media links on your resume? I pretty much understand it makes sense if it's an online resume so that they can click on it. But for an
Mhm.
offline interview, do you advise?
For an offline interview, I had my GitHub link and my LinkedIn link
Mm,
um, on
okay.
my resume.
Mm,
But I don't think any other social media at least makes sense. I would probably still maybe like only GitHub and LinkedIn, because I don't care like what other person does on other social media, right? On
mm,
networking, it doesn't matter.
mm,
But GitHub, if I want to see what are the code pushes they have done, and if probably LinkedIn maybe for some certificates or something.
mm,
But yeah, not apart from these two, which I've usually checked, even if they have it on resume. These are the couple of links which I think are mostly important. Yeah.
okay.
And before I forget, like, we spoke about how my college journey, and I spoke about my lectures, hackathons, and all of it,
Mm,
right? So talking to seniors is something which I forgot to mention. So
mm,
that is something which helped me a lot, and I had a very good set of seniors whom I'm still in contact with, and
mm,
they guided me a lot. So that is something which I would definitely advise. Like, why is it I'm bringing it up now? Is like, you will not know, right? Like, even your
mm,
lecturers will not know how how their campus interview went.
mm,
Only a senior would have went through the campus interviews, and your immediate seniors, you will have better contact. They'll be in your college itself. So,
mm,
and all these clubs, beat I was part of Linux campus club, and like any club for that matter, it's good to be part of it. Why? You will get access to your seniors, right? Like, that way you'll
mm.
probably talk to them, and yeah,
Oh,
need to make sure that part.
yeah, that makes sense actually. And since you mentioned that it's very important to prioritize your projects as per according to which company you are going for an interview. So, is it
Mhm.
something which we should target and try to work on projects while we are in first year or maybe second year? Because we don't know what our interest might lie in future. So, and also we don't know what in companies which what the companies would actually want us to work on project different domains of projects. So how do you tackle this? Is it something there are some generic technologies which they can work on initially and then later figure out which is their cup of tea as far as technology is concerned?
I would probably say that, yeah, it's good to like, I think second year is sometime where you explore, right? You try to understand what is there, what is, because first year will probably not be in tech, but second year will alongside like learn data structures, algorithm,
Mm,
databases, and all of it. And maybe second year, even sem holidays, like that is the time maybe you kind of like try to understand all of this. What are there? Like, try to make do projects. And when I say projects, you need not have to like do tens of projects. Like, having some 4 or 5, 4 and 5 is like a sweet number, so you'll have
mm,
options. You can definitely just go with 2 or 3 projects in your resume, because there'll be one project at least which you'll be doing for final year, so which will always be there. So
mm,
apart from that, you could probably, if you can probably like finish some 3 or 4, it's good, because you'll have some sweet spot and like to things to talk about, right? So what I used to like feel when I was in engineering, like when I used to give campus interviews, is if you have projects on your resume and usually interviewers during campus interviewing ask about that. So in
Mm.
a given 1 hour interview, if you're spending 20 to 30 minutes on something which you know, that's a good thing, right? You will
Okay.
talk in a more confident fashion, and like you will know things rather than like topics which you don't know. So it's good to have like 4 or 5 projects so you can talk about it when they ask.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, coming back, it's good to explore, and it's I think it depends on what you would want to do. So in
Mm.
second year, you can like kind of explore what is it which there. So which has always been evergreen as like software development, back-end development,
Mm.
front-end development. In terms of software, yeah, I don't know much of EC, so but yeah, in terms of
Yeah. Yeah.
software, so there's this front end, back end, and a full stack development. So you could probably potentially do projects in all of this. And if you're interested in machine learning, you can do projects in machine learning. And if you're interested in maybe a lot of operating systems and like probably core functionalities, and if you want to like write code closer to machine, so you could probably consider that as well, projects in that domain. So
Mm.
you could consider all of that. So there are companies like which work on compilers and all of that. So you could probably learn that and work make projects. So when you're not really sure what you want to do, it's good to do in a variety of domain. Yeah, you
Mm.
can always like build expertise in one of them. But if you're building expertise in one of them, you will probably end up want to go into that domain.
Mm.
And one call out is, it's okay if you do some other project domain and if you end up in a different company.
Mm.
Because in my college, when I had my resume for campus hiring, all of my projects were based on machine learning. And it's
Mm.
okay, interviewers like don't worry a lot, but it's just that if you have, it's nice. If you don't have,
Mm.
it's okay. Yeah.
So as I can understand, it is advantage if you have the
Right.
projects on what domain they're looking for. But if not, it will always give them an impression that you're capable to learn whatever they require.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's correct. And also one of the unique thing, what I don't recollect in which interview they asked, but they were more interested to see how I learned this concept because it was not covered in my college, right? So I
Mm.
did few courses on Coursera, and I learned concepts on my own, kind of like went through papers and all of that. So they were
Mm.
interested in that and bringing the Amazon angle to it, right? So one of the leadership principles in Amazon is learn and be curious, and
Mm.
which is like most asked leadership principle for an entry level fresh graduate who is
Mm.
interviewing at Amazon. So I would probably say, if you are learning something outside of your college, outside of your curriculum,
Mm.
that means that you are kind of trying to excel in that leadership principle,
Mm.
learn and be curious. And even though Amazon has a set of principles which they call out like explicitly everywhere, every company follows that with that name or with any other name. So what
Mm.
is this which is important is learning on your own, being curious, how you learned that, and having good example for that.
Mm.
Just learning is not sufficient, right? Like if you have a project, then you can talk about it. You can say you learned this in this way and you did this and what was the outcome, and that is a story. So that is something you should probably consider. Like
Yes.
anyone probably who is doing projects should consider in that fashion that they have something in this domain, because as a new graduate, companies would want to see how curious you are, how
Mm.
capable you are to learn new stuff on your own.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that is something which I can relate to as well because I had some blockchain projects on my resume during my interview. So that
Okay,
pretty much helped me trying to prove my capabilities and curiosity level as well. So,
that's nice.
and moving to your off campus journey. So, as you did mention that you initially got placed in Logmain. So, how did you
Mhm.
manage to find such a high paying job in such a short span of time?
Right. So I had gotten placed in Logmein. I was doing my internship,
Mm.
and as per the college policy, we could
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
not interview once we get some jobs in some categories. I think in tier two or Dream.
Mm.
I think Dream was still open to me back then, but Amazon was not visiting our college. So
Mm.
I actively kept an eye on all of the competitions or all of the hiring which they used to do for off campus.
Mm.
So and also is to reach out to people working at Amazon. So I got an interview opportunity because one of the person I didn't know on LinkedIn referred me.
Mm.
So LinkedIn is a good social platform to make connections in companies where you want to join. So make connections from that, like be it Amazon, any company for that matter. Like make connections. You could probably connect to recruiters or you could probably connect with software engineers who are working, or the managers. So these are three people who could probably help you, give you a referral. If you don't have any, you could definitely explore your connections as well, like in terms of your seniors or anyone you know. But if you don't know, that's okay. Anyone will be okay to give you a referral if they look into your resume and if they feel you are a good fit for their company. So, and coming back, when is the right time? Like usually all of this, at least back then in 2019, I was uh, I was like off-campus interviews happened in May. That is when they would have probably completed the campus interviews and they will still have some openings and they'll probably want to fill. So that is where I got in this opportunity, and one of my LinkedIn connection referred, and I've been a good friend of him after that. But yeah, back then I didn't know much, so they referred me, and again that had a coding test, and that had like followed by 4 rounds of interview, 3 rounds of on-site paper pen coding test, and one round of virtual, which I was like referring earlier. So 4 rounds of interview. It didn't have any HR round, but it just had the 4 rounds of interview, and complexity of questions range from medium to hard, I believe, but I'd say mostly medium, and just maybe hard in some cases. But in terms of questions they asked, I don't think I had solved the exact question before. But yeah, like since I was actively applying, I used to like constantly like stay in touch with competitive programming, so that helped. Maybe I had done like some similar questions, or like I had a good grasp of like competitive coding back then. And yeah, it never ends. You always need to like keep track of like competitive coding, because that's a gateway. Like you need that for any company you. So that was it. And yeah, I think I had 4 rounds of interview, and so I got an offer in June. I actually was supposed to start my full time in LogMeIn in July, but since I got an offer in June, I ended up joining Amazon right out of my college and then joined LogMeIn. And in fact, LogMeIn people were also supportive of it. So yeah, they did ask me if there's something maybe they could probably like do, so I could stay back. But yeah, apart from that, my manager back then in Logmin is also supportive of my move, and I think everyone understands it's your choice at the end of the day in software industry. I mean, they would also probably move at some point, so it's not a fixed job, right? You can always move, and in fact companies can also remove you. So it's always okay if you want to take up a new opportunity, you can. But that being said, you can't just like move every 1 year or 2 years. It's good to stay in a company for 2 3 years, because wherever you go, you would probably spend first 3 to 6 months on understanding. So if you want to do some enough like basic contribution, like learn what you're doing, so you would need 2 3 years. So someone's planning of like, I'll join this company right after my college, then I'll move to a different company. That's something which is, again, I'm probably not advised, because they'll not have sufficient time to do anything, and that might not be a good thing. And yeah, so like I said, if college companies are not coming to college, that's okay. You could probably like look at the off-campus hiring, what they're doing, stay in touch on LinkedIn, and look at all of this. So I think now also Hacker Earth, Amazon has a probably tie up with Hacker Earth or one of this Hacker Rank. Every year that changes. So any company for that matter will have these competitions in Hacker Earth, Hacker Rank, and all, where it's like a hiring competition where if you crack that round, you will probably get an invite for the hiring.
Yeah, that happens in Akarank right now,
Right.
and Gigs
Yeah.
for Gigs as well. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. You would need to keep track of all of that. So campus placements is the best thing which can happen. But if that company or that role, what you want is not coming to your college, you don't have to restrict yourself to that. Make sure you explore outside of it.
Yeah, yeah, and LinkedIn is something which is very important for everyone to explore in the
That's
college
true.
years itself, I believe, starting from their
Right.
engineering. So, and yeah, you would like to add on something?
No, I'm good. Yeah, LinkedIn is very important. I would say that yeah, I've always like LinkedIn. Every time I want to like explore, or like maybe think of exploring or like applying jobs, that is probably the right application which I would probably open. Yeah, so LinkedIn is really nice.
Yeah, and moving on, feel free to not answer these questions. It might be a little bit personal, but as you just mentioned, there are a lot of resources available for upskilling ourselves online, and the two quality resources for free. So knowing this back then, if you get a chance to go back in time into your first year of engineering, knowing this that quality resources are available out there, So would you again prefer to choose any other way by not going into college and doing stuff on your own? And since again LinkedIn is there for securing a job to prove your skills as well, or would you again prefer to go to the traditional tried and tested way?
I still complain about how our colleges work, but even though I complain, there are some things you can learn only in that way is what I've like believed. Like it's even though there are other methods of learning online, it's very difficult for any of us to like be concentrated and like
Mm-hmm.
spend that much amount of time in a disciplined fashion every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you ask me, if I could probably spend 6 hours or 8 hours staring at a computer learning from a resource online, I would probably say no, I'll go to college, learn it from my teacher. Like it's something which is nicer. You have that human interaction. Whenever you have a question, you can stop them, ask them, even though you might like not be learning everything out of that. But yeah, that is something which maybe it's because of the way we have studied over time. Like we are programmed to that environment. I can't just make that switch because I
Mm-hmm.
would have probably learned like 12 hours of my schooling right before I start engineering, 12 years of my schooling. So at the 13th year I can't just switch over completely from that mode to an online based curricula like YouTube based and all of it. I would
Mm-hmm.
say it's always a mix of both. Like I would probably mix of both. That
Okay.
has advantages, it has disadvantages. This also has advantages, disadvantages. So mix of both is what I would like. And maybe if you ask me if I go back and like want to change, I probably maybe add on few more stuff, courses and all. But yeah, there's always a limit of how much you can take. So maybe I would probably would have removed something, added something. But yeah, mix of both is something which I've always liked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And would you like to share what are the things you would have added on based on your experience right now?
Definitely. I would probably say I would have learned Git better.
Mm-hmm.
I did learn after I graduated. I just knew basic Git, like how I used to like use UI and all of it. But yeah, learning Git gives you more confidence. You don't have to like learn it after you join a company. It's not a big deal. It'll probably
Mm-hmm.
just take a week or something. But yeah, learning Git is something which is important. And like I said, I worked on machine learning. I didn't work on software engineering back in college. That is something I
Mm-hmm.
probably would have changed. So why is it I would change? If I knew I would probably end up with a software engineering job, working on that or like learning that technology would have eased my ramp up time when I started my job, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would have probably learned that. But yeah, again, I did my internship in software engineering where I had sufficient time to learn, and my manager, my mentor, and all of them were very nice, and I got really good support. Does not happen for everyone, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
good to know. I would have like I got time, but yeah, that worked out. If in case if I had not gotten time, I would have probably said
Okay.
I would have liked to do this in a different way. That I would have probably learned that what I would work on back then. And there's definitely gap in between what we do in industry and what we do in college. So I would
Mm-hmm.
like to identify the gaps. What is there for the job which I am interested in? So if I knew I were to work in a software developer at Amazon, I would probably would have learned the native AWS stack, how things work, what is it, what does the cloud offer. I
Mm-hmm.
just knew what cloud computing is back then. I didn't know how things used to work. I had not used any of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something which I would have probably learned back then.
Yeah, that is something people can consider if they are about to enter their engineering. So, and one last question, I believe, or maybe there are a couple of more. And does a
Sure.
heavy workload follow a heavy package, or the role will be quite satisfying?
That depends. I would say once you graduate, I think your whatever your period of enjoying will end. So
Mm-hmm.
once you start working, there's always be work. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I can talk of my personal experience
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
for instead of like maybe giving a generic answer. So
Mm-hmm.
in general, for me, I've been with Amazon for about 3 years, 2 months now. So it's been like a wave where some of my days will be where I end up working 5 to 6 hours, some of the days where I end up working 8 to 10 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that pattern because during like release or during a project deadline I end up working more. But when like it's in an initial phase where I have some time, I probably end up working 5 to 6 hours, which I'm okay with. But yeah, there are teams, there are people who manage it in a way that they work only for 8 hours. It's just what works out for them and how what is the ask of the day. And yeah, so it depends on that.
Okay.
If you are in a role which demands you to work, you'll probably end up working. And I don't think it's bad initially. Like if you work in that environment for few years, right, you will sustain anywhere else where where you're maybe in a more relaxed environment. So at this point, when you're graduating, that is a suggestion which I got for myself as well, and I probably want to pass on for others as well. Work-life balance is a myth. Work-life balance is a myth, and you just need to kind of like make sure there's work-life harmony, where you probably work, be happy, finish your work, go back to your personal life, enjoy that as well. Yeah.
And can you provide deeper insights of what exactly ESOPs are? And I pretty much believe whichever company offers dream package do have that in their CTC as well. And what would be the vesting period as well? Something.
Sure, I can talk about it. I can. So there are two things. One is ESOPs, and another is RSUs. So uh, I don't have much context on ESOPs because all of the companies I have worked, I have been just part of Amazon, and Amazon offers RSUs. But how I have understood ESOPs is the company wouldn't have still went public. So if you want to sell ESOPs, either the company should go public, and that is where you could sell it, or if the company usually itself buys back every at some particular frequency, where you could sell it back to the company and make money out of it. But in terms of RSUs, that is a stock or share which companies offers. Restricted stock unit is what they call. So let's say for brevity, let's assume like you would probably get some 8 shares as soon as you 8 RSUs as soon as you graduate, right? So as soon as you join a company, so any company for that matter, I haven't seen giving something which will vest immediately. What Amazon has is vesting culture of 5, 15, 40, I guess. Out of 100%, 5% of your 8 units would vest in first year, 15% of your 8 units would vest in second year, 40% of your 8 units would vest in third year, 40% of your 8 units will vest in fourth year. So this is what Amazon has, but I think Google has 66, no, probably 33, 33, 12, 12 kind of vesting structure. And each of this company has a different vesting structure, and definitely because they would have added everything, your package on your first year pay will look hefty. So this is something which I would probably call out as make sure look at what is the base component, base pay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what matters. Like that is the in-home cash what you'll take. RSUs like will vest over time. And when I say vest, what will happen when it vests, right? Let's say your 5% will contribute to one share, or like one share, and if 1 unit vests, what happens is you will get your one share in your name, and you could either keep it or sell it.
Okay.
That is what it basically means. Like you will probably, if you would want to buy XYZ company, so you're part of XYZ company, and when 1 unit of it vests, 1 unit will be transferred to your name. You could probably keep it or sell it. That is all
Okay.
it is.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is something which most of us have doubts when we are getting placement opportunities. The CTC breakdown, which involves lot of stuff. So, and
Right.
yeah, we have reached the end of our conversation. Thank you for being so honest in whatever you could share. I did hope it gives pretty valuable insights into people who are about to enter their engineering. And
Right.
all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. All the best to all of you. I'll be open to probably, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll probably share my LinkedIn URL with you, right? And feel free to hit me up. There might be some delays, but I'll try to respond as soon as possible. Yeah, feel free to if you have any questions, and if there's any way I can help you guys in any situation, like if you want some suggestions, if you want to talk to me, and definitely not just me. There are tons of other seniors who will probably be open to help. So yeah, feel free to reach out to them as well. Be active in all of this clubs and all of this, because that's the only way you can like talk to other people, connect with other people. So that is what will definitely help. So yeah, all the best to everyone who's probably watching this now or later. Yeah, all the best. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.